Hey, me again. Here to bother you. About a movie that I think is really weirdly okay. Like it's fine, you know. That being Transformers 2007. I have it on my shelf over here. It's down there. It's like a five film collection. It's this big white one that's right down here. You can kind of see it. Um, and this movie's so weird, dude. So I'm a big Transformers person. When I first watched these movies, I was not as big of a Transformers person as I am now. Which is to say, I was not putting together like Soundwave or Shockwave. So sorry, that's Soundwave. Shockwave. I get them confused every time, man. I wasn't putting together like Shockwave model kits when I first watched these movies, but I'm putting together Shockwave model kits now. Um, I also have a Soundwave, RC, and Megatron model kit all on pre-order, and I have a Soundwave Legacy figure on pre-order. I like Transformers quite a bit. I got these fellas back here. I already talked about that in my Transformers 1 video, I think. But I just like talking about Transformers, which is why I am talking about these movies I don't like. um, so it's important that the prior context for this movie be stated because up until this movie coming out, there had not been a Transformers movie released theatrically, not in the States at least, for 21 years. There were plenty of Transformers projects between the 86 movie and this one, be that Beast Wars or Transformers Animated or any of the other shit. It's a lot of Transformers stuff that came out. A lot of toys, a lot of shows, a lot of comics, a lot of comics, which I also collect. Read that Skybound series. Newest issue comes out February 12th. Buy it, but not before me, because I want to read it also. Um, is there anything in here? No. It's an empty can. It's just a fucking empty can on my desk. There's something in here though. Check this shit out. I'm such an oaf, dude. Damn it. um, but it gets announced that there's a new Transformers movie coming out in 2007. And everybody's like, oh my God. For the first time in 21 years, 40-year-old men across the globe cheered. And I do mean across the globe, because that development will become very important for when we get to the fourth and fifth movies. Uh, so this movie comes out. I did not see it when it came out. I've got a real weird relationship with these movies because I remember having a Revenge of the Fallen poster in my room when I was super young. That's the second movie. Had not seen it. I had a Bumblebee action figure, the toy. I can call it a toy now. But I hadn't seen any of these movies. I didn't know who the Fallen was. I remember asking my mom, like, is the Fallen a character? Who is the Fallen? And honestly, having seen that movie, I had to ask the same question. Because he's in the movie for 5 minutes. Megatron has double his screen time in that movie. But that's something I'll talk about when I talk about Revenge of the Fallen. And believe you me, I will be watching Revenge of the Fallen. I already did in preparation for the video. Um, but back to Transformers 2007. This movie is super duper okay. Um, it's not nearly as egregious as some of the later movies are, but it's definitely not like everything a Transformers fan could have asked for after 21 years of no theatrical releases. It's not Transformers 1 coming out after the last night, you know? Like, it's not, oh, we've been so starved of good content, here's finally something good. I wouldn't say that. But, general audiences loved this thing. And I can see why. That there are a lot of things to like about this first movie, but there's so very much to dislike as well. Um, The biggest part for me is that Optimus Prime has so little screen time in this movie. I'm not even really an Optimus guy either, you know? Like I'm not huge on Optimus. Of the two like leaders of the factions, he's my least favorite because of course he is. Megatron's fucking awesome. He's cool in this movie too. Again, he's not in it for like half of the movie. They've always got his ass frozen in ice. You ever notice that? Megatron's always frozen somewhere. They do that shit in the Skybound comics too. He's like frozen in like an ice cap in the Skybound comics for some reason. Um, there are some atrocities performed to Transformers designs in these movies. Oh my good lord. There is a scene in this movie where I think it's in this movie at least. It might be in Revenge of the Fallen, actually. I'm pretty sure it's this first movie. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's this first movie. Yes, it has to be this first movie because George Bush is in it. Not actually, but they mentioned President Obama in Revenge of the Fallen because he was president by the time that movie came out. So I know that this scene is in this first movie. The- there's a Decepticon who hacks into the mainframe of the White House in this movie, and he is the most scraggly looking motherfucker I have ever seen in my entire life. He's terrible. The design is just atrocious. I can't stand it. That Decepticon is supposed to be Frenzy. If you know what Frenzy looks like, you know that's wrong. You know that's just not right. Um, and it's so strange because he's like blue, right? And between Rumble and Frenzy, they're just color swaps of each other. They look exactly the same. I think Frenzy's arms might look normal, whereas Rumble has like the mallet arms. But fucking Rumble is the blue one. If you're gonna butcher the design, at least get the colors right, right? Especially when that character already exists. It's something that's super nitpicky, but it's something that's always bothered me that his character was translated like that because he just doesn't look like that. He's fucked up looking in this movie. But while we're on the topic of design changes, let's talk about Bumblebee because that was like the big thing. Bumblebee's not a Volkswagen anymore; he's a Camaro now. Uh, I don't mind it. I think it works better for like a movie where you're trying to capture cool looking car chases and shit like that. I think if he was a VW bug, it wouldn't evoke nearly as much like, whoa, cool, the blowing up bullshit. It works fine in Bumblebee, but Bumblebee is also going for like it's like nostalgia gasming itself into submission the entire time. If you've seen that movie, you know exactly what I mean by that. That movie is very much like, whoa, the 80s. And also, there are Transformers, I guess. I like Bumblebee. I think Bumblebee is probably better than this movie is. But yeah, Bumblebee, I would say, is better than any of these movies, if only because Soundwave looks right. I'll talk about Soundwave more when I talk about the second movie, because oh my god, they destroyed Soundwave in these movies. He looks atrocious. He's just wrong. He's got him wrong. Anyway, um, Peter Cullen is voicing Megatron, or not Megatron. Of course, he's not voicing Megatron. He is voicing Optimus Prime in in this movie and in all of the movies. Um, he's doing good in this movie. I would say that he's doing a good ass job in this movie. Yeah, Prime is very much still a like I'm the leader and I will fight kind of thing in this movie, but he's not doing the biggest departure of this movie from the next movies, even the second movie, Revenge of the Fallen, is what Prime is not doing in them. because when I talk about Revenge of the Fallen, you will get what I mean. He's doing some shit in those next movies that Optimus Prime should not be doing. And I have seen defense of that behavior online that, again, I will talk about in the next video that I just don't approve of. But um, there's these movies are directed by Michael Bay, obviously. They're called the Bayverse movies for a reason. And that comes with some inherent flaws, like the sexualization of Megan Fox's 17-year-old character. Yeah, that's not a joke. There are multiple scenes where she's like on Bumblebee and she's doing that, you know, the thing where like the hood is up and she's reaching up and you can see her midriff. You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's fucking gross. It's really gross. It's awful. It's a movie from 2007. That's all I need to say about that. But there's also just like weird pervert shit in this movie. Bumblebee pisses on John Turturro, and then you see John Turturro's ass. Like, what are we? Why are we putting John Turturro through this movie? He comes back in the second one too. I don't know how they convinced him. Maybe it's a like Sigourney Weaver not wanting to be in Alien 3, but then they like drove to her house with a big truckload of money and were like, "You're gonna be in this movie," and then she said yes. Maybe that's a similar thing to what happened here. I can only imagine so because I don't know why John Turturro would have come back for a second movie. He's like a real actor. He was in the Batman. Obviously, that was way more recent than this movie was. But I guess I should probably talk about the plot in this movie. Um, it's all made up. every every major lore thread in this movie is made up. The Allspark that they are after in this movie, the cube that Optimus is talking about, is just not a pre-existing thing in Transformers lore. It's just a Bayism. It's a MacGuffin. There is a MacGuffin in every single fucking one of these movies. It's genuinely insane. The first movie, it's the Allspark. The second movie, it's the Matrix. The third movie, it's the Transwarp Key. The fourth movie, it's the Seed. And there's probably one in the fifth movie. I don't remember what the one in the fifth movie is. I don't remember very much about the fifth movie. I don't want to remember much about the fifth movie because I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I don't want to let out my aggression on that movie. I'll save it for the review of that movie. And I have been making my lovely partner watch these movies with me, as I had threatened in my previous videos, and so that we have to have a miserable time together, at least. But like I said, I don't hate this movie. The human shit is so lame and stupid, and I just don't care. Uh, like the Shia LaBeouf in this movie is fine. I think he's unironically used better in the second movie because he's like at least kind of entertaining in the second movie when he's like infected with the cube piece. And speaking of the cube, I did forget to talk about the cube. Um, the cube is just it's just a MacGuffin. It's like, hey, here's the thing that like causes life, and it does that a couple times throughout the movie. Mm. But every time it does, it just makes Decepticons. Like it only ever makes hostile transformers. Like the cube just doesn't make Autobots, I guess, or maybe it's just making like undisciplined life that doesn't know how to like exist yet because it's like primitive life. I don't know. Maybe it would be like bringing cave, like spawning in cavemen, effectively. You know that like I don't know, but even like ancient transformers, like the Primes and the Fallen, are like civilized. You know, they're like people. I don't know, but the cube, it gets real big and then it gets real small. It only gets real small so that Sam Witwicky can put it under his arm and run around with it like an American football because American audiences like to see that kind of thing. But and then Megatron comes back to life because there needs to be an antagonist at some point. And then Megatron just kills Jazz. Like Jazz, I don't even think he's in the movie for more than a minute. And Jazz is like really small for some reason, or maybe Megatron is really big. but he's like the size of Megatron's midsection, or maybe the shot is just framed weird. He looks really small, and he picks Jazz up, and Jazz goes, "You want a piece of me?" And then Megatron goes, "No, I want two," and then he rips him in half, and then Jazz is just dead. Like mainstay Transformers character Jazz is just fucking dead. They kill him with no fanfare. Nobody talks about it. Nobody mourns his death. He's just dead. Um, there's a really cool moment with Prime in this movie where things are shit's looking bad, and Optimus is like, "You need to shove the cube into my chest and kill me with it so that the cube is destroyed and nothing will happen." And then like Megatron can't use it that way. That's a good characterization for Optimus. He would do that. Um, And then Sam is just like, "No, Optimus, I won't kill you." And then he runs over to Megatron and he just shoves it into Megatron's chest instead, and he dies. Megatron just dies. Also Starscream's in the movie, I guess. He's also kind of in the movie. He's like barely in the movie, but people seem to know who he is. Or maybe that's the second movie where Starscream flies in and the military guys are like, "Oh, Starscream!" Even though he's in this first movie for like 30 seconds in total and doesn't do anything. He's like a triangle too. Starscream's real fucked looking in these movies. And it really highlights a really big problem with the Transformers designs in these movies for me. I wish I had like a physical model to show you aside from Shockwave, because Shockwave is not a good example of this. Um, I don't like in these movies how once the Transformers transform back into robots, you can't tell that they were vehicles at some point. Like there's a sequence in The Last Night that demonstrates this principle really well, where Megatron is like, I think Megatron's a helicopter in that movie for whatever fucking reason, and he unfolds, and then the either the wings of the jet or the blades of the helicopter just right into his back, and you just can't tell that he was ever a flying machine. Whereas like a character like Windblade, at least I think it's Windblade, who has like the rotor sticking out of her back, or Arachnid, who has like the big long legs and the drone head. It's just something that really bothers me. Like with Bumblebee, you know, at least Bumblebee in G1 has like the car body still. He still has like the bug body. But when Bumblebee turns from a Camaro into a Transformer in these movies, he just looks like a guy. Like there's almost nothing about him that you could even tell was a car at one point, aside from the fact that he uses his car radio to talk. Again, whereas like a character like Soundwave, albeit that principle is not demonstrated with his design in these movies, like he's still got the boombox body and with like the tape deck right here that unfolds and ejects the Cassetticons, or the Reporticons as they're calling them now. And that's just something that's super lost. And I think that's something that's like a real big problem with the designs in these movies, which is not as bad as the designs we'll get in these movies. At least you can tell who's who in these movies, kind of. At least on the Decepticons side. Um, but yeah, and these movies are so goddamn long too. Each of these movies are like 2.5 hours to 3 hours long. Oh, excuse me. And they just don't need to be. They just don't need to be. Each of these movies could be an hour and a half, and nobody would have complained. Nobody would have said anything about it if Michael Bay just wanted to hack out all the bullshit in this movie. Excuse me, and just make it like an hour and a half. I think the movies would be better for it if he had done that. Because like, and it gets so bad when it gets to like Dark of the Moon too. Because the Dark of the Moon action sequence at the very end is just like an and a half long.